All right, well, welcome everyone. It is November. I can't even get over how fast time flies, especially when you start getting these wisdom highlights and you become a nanny. For some reason, time flies by a little bit faster. And I never thought it would. But welcome everyone. First thing I wanted to bring to everyone's attention is that our next month's meeting is actually a training, and it will be on December 19th. I did have a typo on the original one, and so I'm on the original agenda, and so I am downloading it now, and I'll put it into the chat. Oh, and Tim, I just wanted to verify the one you just put in there has the updated date. Just verifying it.
Yeah, this is Tim. It is not the updated version. I'll make sure the updated one is put in now.
Alrighty, because I just that's the one I want to put in there. Okay, alrighty. So for those of you who would like to attend it, it is going to be on December 19th. It will be from 12 to 2 Mountain Time, so 2 to 4 Eastern, and 11 to 1 Pacific. If you do not have if you do not have the calendar invite, please put your email in the chat and I'll get you invited to it. And so if you will put that in there, we'll grab that. Also, for us to be able to capture who is all here today, if you don't mind, put it in the chat, your name, your organization, what state you support, and if you support an emergency support function. And then also something that you did fun for the holiday. And so, but even if you didn't celebrate it, but you did something fun. So yay. All right. And I'm pulling back up the agenda. All right. Okay. And all right, Kathleen, I thought I had it to you because you're one of our, I believe you are one of our presenters on that one as well. Yeah, and if you want to share your contact information, you're welcome to do that as well in the chat. We are updating our directory and we'll go over that today as well. And so we'll go from there. Okay. All right. And with that, are there any newcomers to the meeting today? So far, it's looking like everybody has been here before, except for Harper Grace. Let me see what it
I've
comes
been
up.
here before.
You have, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. I just sometimes it comes in weird, so sometimes I wonder. All right. Okay. Any other newcomers? Or those who haven't been here in a while?
I probably haven't been here for a while. I've been in and out.
So you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Daryl Schaefer. I'm retired U.S. Coast Guard, and I'm doing PhD studies at University of Alaska Fairbanks. I was a wounded warrior while I was on active duty my last few years, and started doing a few presentations on disabilities and disasters. And that's the meld of what I'm doing my PhD work on is vulnerability assessments, especially post-Merbach here in coastal Alaska.
Interesting. Are you working with David? Do you know David Newman?
No, don't know David Newman. I know a different David, but
Yeah.
getting all sorts of new contacts.
Yeah.
You know, that's funny. I was just going to write Daryl in the chat here, Sadie. I appreciate you bringing my name up. Daryl, I'm the state ADA coordinator here in Alaska. And I'm also the access and functional needs liaison for our State Emergency Operations Center. So I already put my info kind of in the chat, but I'll send you my email.
Okay, sounds good.
Nice to meet you.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Yay. And actually, I would have thought, Daryl, you learned about this meeting through David. So this is really nice when also we're coming together.
Got to come back full circle.
Nice. And we, that is actually how we're doing, we're gonna go and do a roadshow. We call it a roadshow workshop. Here in Colorado, we're gonna go through all of our, counties, basically. We're gonna chunk them into chunks that are field operations, comes together, and it's about 5 to 7 counties, and we're gonna go in there and bring partners to tables to do the exact same thing like Daryl, you and David just today, so that we could better learn what we don't know, because we don't know, as well as learn about how we all come together and how we work together before, during, and after emergencies and disasters. So I love that it's even working through this national call. So yay.
Absolutely. And like the presentation that I've done it at a few different levels, at the state level, EMS, at an international level with the Disability and Diversity PAC-RIM conference, and with FEMA at the national level. So I'm more than happy to make it available for people at whatever levels you want.
Awesome. Yay. All right. With that, so Quinn Butler also is new to the, I believe, or is that from our other one? And I just missed it from before. It looks like. Was Quinn last month? Sending Lifeline out to Gabby and Tim.
Yes, I do believe so.
Alrighty, yeah, so we'll just take that out. I just missed it. Okay, perfect. All right, well, this month we're going to focus on us all coming together and sharing some, maybe some highlights, some concerns, anything that's on your mind related to, emergency management and inclusive emergency management and access and functional needs, any needs that you're looking for, as well as any rumors that you've been hearing that we could try to get on the agenda so that we could get all of us working together. Are there any of those out there? Any highlights, again, concerns, anything that's on your mind, needs, or rumors? All right, I think I'll start, and then maybe it'll trigger everyone else as well. Just a week and a half ago, I guess, I moved into the chair for the International Association for Emergency Management Access and Whole Community Inclusion Caucus. It's an international program, and now I'm going to go into the role of a chair. Normally, Anne Marie McLaughlin, it doesn't look like she's on today. She was actually the chair, and now she moved into a different caucus as a chair, and so I've taken over the chair for this caucus, and it'll be about a 2-year commitment as chair, and then the vice chair will come into place. And what they do with that caucus is that they have a private sector and public sector, and the chair or the vice chair have to be the opposite. And so, I support in the public sector, so the vice chair would need to come in as the private sector. And then, it keeps flipping so that there's always an opportunity for people to grow with. So just thought I'd bring that up if anybody is interested in that, that caucus, please let me know, and I'll send you information on it. There is a fee to join that caucus, and then there's also a conference. However, in there are opportunities for scholarships or other opportunities there that help to make it more accessible. So that is something that is going on that I thought would be nice to share as another area of gathering resources and sharing, coming together and helping emergency management with that whole community inclusion work that we're doing. Let me think if there's any concerns. We unfortunately, I believe it was a week ago, a week ago, we had a mass shooting here in Colorado, and then literally about a mile away from where I live here in Colorado Springs. And that one was that you know, it's always a really tough time to go through, and being able to share out resources for the community, the affected community. However, I do want to celebrate the Stop the Shooter individual who did not hesitate and was able to save a whole lot more lives that could have been affected as well. So those are some of the concerns that that we have experienced here. I know Amy is our state lead with some disaster behavioral health resources. Amy, is there anything you might want to share in regards to that? And Amy might be muted if you think you're talking. Amy Both Siebert, or both Siebert.
Sadie, so sorry. Can you repeat that question?
Just if you had any other resources that you think that would be helpful to share across, even for other states that might be going through a mass event, a mass catastrophe event with an active shooter. I know there was a lot of child resources that were also really nice to share for parents as well. So I just wanted to see if you had
Absolutely.
anything else.
I do, Sadie. What I might do is forward you a series of resources that we received from our partners at the National Child Traumatic Stress Network, from the National Mass Violence and Victimization Resource Center, and from the SAMHSA Disaster Technical Assistance Center, all of whom were great partners in providing us some of the things that they have as part of their resource libraries on a regular basis. But you know, when you're in the middle of a disaster, it's nice when somebody else organizes them for you. So those were fairly extensive lists. So I'll forward them as emails to you, Sadie, if that works. And then they can be shared as a longer list rather than people trying to copy them out of the chat.
This is Sadie. Thank you, Amy. Yes, I'll get those shared out to the group as well. Hey, all right. Kelly, looks like you might have an update.
Yes, I just sent you an email. We are starting to run DAFN active shooter trainings tomorrow across the state. We're going to do one per region, and it's a half-day training that we partnered with Union County, one of their captains who has actually been doing a training like this for a while. And we partnered, I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago, to do a video. It was only a few minutes long on how to respond to the DAFN community and during an active shooter incident. But this will be a half-day training for law enforcement or emergency managers, public health, anyone in the field. So I sent you the info, and I will officially find out tomorrow how the first one goes, and keep you posted.
Yay. Now, have you attended it before, or this is the first time it's happening and you're just sharing it widely?
Correct. So it is the first time it's been open to the state, and usually it was just within the county, but they're very progressive, and I've been working with them to, get them to offer it statewide. So I will know more tomorrow, but I'm excited. I mean, if I can use that word, but I'm glad that we're finally doing this.
Yay, awesome. I just put in one of the flyers. I hope I'm able to do it. I'm able to not duplicate them as I get them in there, but I just,
Thank you.
Yeah. Are they all virtual? Do you know?
They are in person. So we're back to in person. The captain, I believe, wanted to have this one be more interactive and do some demos. So I know that's sometimes a little bit hard for people, but I guess that like I said, I'll see more tomorrow, but I think he does need folks to be there.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
Kelly,
Yeah,
this is Amy again. One other thing that the National Child Traumatic Stress Network has done a really nice job of was creating a resource for active shooter exercises as a means by which to be trauma informed in those spaces, especially when they are preparedness driven. Do you know by chance whether this provider has sort of built in those types of considerations to their planning and their training practices for that type of for the exercises that they hold?
I am not exactly sure because tomorrow's the first time I'm going through the training. But I do know we have individuals who are coming from our disaster response crisis counselors. I don't want to say a department, but they're coming from across the state to attend.
That's great.
So that way they'll be able to not only learn, but provide input going forward. And as you can see, so we have one tomorrow and then 2 in December. So if anything needs to be tweaked, we might be able to do that by then. And then I did see Brian's question, but hopefully I've answered some of that. It was really more so, I'm this AFN planner for the New Jersey Office of Emergency Management. And so I'm aware of what our county AFN planners are doing. And they wanted to get something like this started years ago, which is how we started with the video, but the goal was to always have a more comprehensive training. And so now that that's rolling out, and the next hope is that we offer it again, and not just 3 times regionally.
Kelly,
This is-
since this is Amy one more time, since this is a singular resource among the sort of larger list of things that I was sending to Sadie, I'm happy to drop the guidance document that NCTSN created into the chat in case you'd like to bring it along, share it, consider it for future things.
Sure, thank you. That would be great.
it is awesome. Thank you. I
Yeah.
love how we come together like this. We learn from one another. One of the things that we're all looking at is what is a more inclusive approach versus run, hide, fight, right? And because that leaves out people who can't run or fight or hide, right? So I'm excited to learn what you learned from there and how it's more of an inclusive approach. So yay. All right. Okay. With that, I also wanted to give yep, go ahead, June.
Hi there. Just wanted to share that on December 8th at 10 a.m. noon Pacific, we're doing a watch and discussion of heat wave issues. It's kind of cold right now to think about heat waves, but this is never too soon to think about what's really involved in preparing. So we're going to spend the first hour either on your own or as a group watching the 1 hour documentary Cooked Survival by Zip Code. It's about the heat wave in Chicago in 1995 and all of the lessons that are available to think about applying. So we're going to watch it, but then we'll discuss it from 11 to noon Pacific time. And when I tried to put the link and info in chat, it would not let me paste it. I have no idea why. So Sadie, I'll send it to you by email and maybe you'll have more luck.
This is Sadie. Thank you. Yeah, I'll add that in there. And just to bring up also, June offers a monthly training, and in the agenda, if you go down to announcements, it's under there's some recordings that she did on emergency registries. There was a 2-part series, a misleading, harmful, non-inclusive fix. And then the links are in there, as well as on November 10th, she did a annual gadgets and gifts group sharing for your favorite emergency gadgets, tools, and books. So just want to bring that to your attention in case you're interested in it. And then as soon as I get the link on how to register, I will get that into the chat as well.
Thanks, Sadie. And I just want to add that there are probably almost 3 years worth of archived emergency policy and practice discussions on that CFILC channel. So I'll post that link, or I'll send you that link as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will tell you there is a huge growing interest in the G197 integrating access and functional needs in emergency management across not only our region, our FEMA region, but across the nation. We even are, as we're trying to better understand the access and functional needs resource framework, it's really catching on with all of our emergency management, as well as our emergency support function partners, our non-government organizations, and others that volunteer organizations, so that there's a better understanding of what the actual resource need is, using that CMIST, C-M-I-S-T, memory tool, resource memory tool. And that was developed by June and Alexandra Enders after Katrina, when they were able to do a really good research on what resources people needed in order to save lives, as well as the ones that cost lives. And so using that communication resource framework, maintaining health and medical resources, independence resources, support services and safety as that drive self-determination resources, and transportation resources. So with that, anybody, are you seeing the need in your state for that, so that we could start bringing this up to the Office of Disability Integration and Coordination? They have a new Director Sherman Gillums, who is extremely active. I had the honor and pleasure to be able to see both his presentations and discuss with him, one at the National Emergency Management Association, and then also at the International Association for Emergency Management Conferences, one in October and then one again in just a couple weeks ago. And his vision is very similar to this group, that plan with approach, using items of being able to have the actual resource needs. And so he is also invited to this meeting. He'll start trying to make it as often as he can and be part of that. So just wanted to, oh, June, you were able to get it in there. Oh, just the YouTube channel. Okay, in there. So any other, are any of you all seeing the need for that G197?
Sadie, this is Ken from Utah.
Yes.
I just signed up for that course, and I'm happy that it's being offered. Question I have, you know, FEMA provides the advanced professional series of courses and so forth. Are you familiar with what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Just wondering if the day would come whenever the G197 could be a required course for that series. For emergency managers. It's integrating access and functional needs into emergency management. Seems like it'd be something to think about, just as a thought. That's just my thought.
So I have a couple of our regional disability integrations, regional disability integration specialists on. I think Danielle and Mike Houston, at least. And if I'm missing any of the other artists, please let me know. RDIS, it's their acronym. Danielle or Mike, do you have any comment on that?
This is Mike. I agree with you, Ken. I think the more we can push these kinds of trainings would be ideal. However, if we don't have for emergency management that's responsible for the planning, if you will, the all hazards planning within every state, we don't have enough disability integration personnel that are housed in that area. Now, that sounds disparaging and that's not my intent, but if we do these trainings, what outcome would it lead to? If you do it mandatory, I think it would be great for the awareness, but then to drive the outcome, I'd be open to having the conversation, because I think there needs to be, I hate the word accountability, but if I may borrow that term, accountability, that we're taking this course with the intent of implementing the things learned within, if that makes sense. So
Yeah,
the
very
end
good.
game, yeah, the end game would be that the state would adopt with its all hazard planning tenants within those trainings, and then have that become an annual part of the process. But in order to do that, you need somebody like yourself in Utah overseeing that, right? And coordinating that within
Sure.
the jurisdiction of your state.
Okay,
That's my 2 cents, but I agree with you that I think mandatory, if we did that, if we could get to that outcome, I think that would be, in my opinion, I think that would be outstanding.
in Utah, we're just we're making it a suggestion now that emergency managers take that. But we just think that, in terms of protecting ourselves from lawsuits and so forth, showing that the state has an interest in access and functional needs with emergency management, and we really push that with emergency managers, is something we need to do. Just a thought.
I support that, and I would be happy to support you in that effort, like much like I've been doing with Sadie here in Colorado as well. But
Thank
Sarah
you.
doesn't need me anymore. She's awesome.
And this is Sadie, that's exactly what I find is like California is actually the designer, a developer of the G197, that curriculum that we're using here in Colorado. The only thing that we changed was making it all Colorado based, Colorado's history, Colorado's why, and the what, so what, now what, based inside there. And so what's hard is when our California or our Arizona or Utah or our Montana partners or other states join it, it's good for a training in Colorado. And then we're finding the need to bring it to those other states. So it's force multiplied within their emergency support function partners as well. And so that's what I'm finding is something that's going on. Danielle, do you have anything you would like to add to that conversation? That what you're finding, because I think you support a whole region that's very interested in it, and that's state to state to state.
Yeah, hi, this is Danielle Bailey, FEMA Region 10 Disability Integration Specialist. And well, I know right now within Region 10, we're undertaking, we're taking a closer look at the G197 that was developed in Colorado and being used by Colorado. It was revamped for Colorado. And we're taking that same curriculum and revamping that curriculum to work for Region 10 states, Alaska, Oregon, Idaho, and Washington. And the intent is to make that course evergreen. So basically, ideally, any state could use that. So that would be a state level course. And the state can always make that mandatory for whomever. I also know at headquarters, FEMA headquarters, that's the Office of Disability Integration and Coordination. They are also undertaking development of of what the L197, which the L just means I don't know what the G is, like state level, L is like federal level. They're revamping their course to be determined as to when that will be released. I know that's been an undertaking for the past couple of years, and hence why a lot of the states, Colorado, California, have taken upon themselves to do their own courses and to kind of push that curriculum for their own counterparts. But ideally, hopefully by the end of this year, we'll have something out of Region 10 that anybody can use, pick up, kind of make it their own, that type of thing. we're using the base of both of all the hard work that both Colorado and California took, and just to kind of update that. So that's what's kind of taken off in Region 10 at this point.
Sounds great.
This is Sadie. What I did find is when we start using resource language, it's more bought in than demographic only information. I find, and I've been seeing this trend, and Amy was my mentor before I even came to the state and became my counterpart, still is my mentor. However, I told her that when I first got into the field, I said, man, I just don't understand how it's so hard when, except for we don't have shared language. So I was doing a whole lot of translation, interpretation, and helping it come. And then being introduced to June's CMIST resource framework really helped that shift. And so I hope that as we develop these G197s, it does focus on not only people with disability and people with access and functional needs, and also including all the way up to each of those CMIST resources. I'm listening to a nice podcast that June recommended to me about some of the fires in California. And one of the things that I hear in it is really, it was somebody who was traveling, and yeah, they were aging, but weren't able to evacuate. And it was because of how they were just somebody visiting in that area. They're not anybody identified as a person that could fall under any of the access and functional demographics. And so, but did fall under CMIST resource needs. And so I'm one of the ones that will force multiply that CMIST resource portion there. Go ahead, Marisol.
I just want to add to the conversation that in California, there's currently works to create 3 additional AFN trainings besides the G197 that are going to be very specific to mass care and shelter, evacuation and transportation. I don't have all the details. I know Vance Taylor had announced it in our AFN coordinator conferences that are held quarterly. So I know that we are currently working on developing additional training.
This is Sadie. I'm so excited to learn from you guys. You all are really leading the nation, and we just like to keep duplicating and all of us learning and growing from it. So yay. Go ahead, June.
Yeah, I'm aware Vance does have a contractor working on at least the evacuation and transportation issues. But on 197, to just kind of accelerate the conversation, I wanted to ask Sadie, you and Danielle and Mike about my editorial comment, which is having observed and been part of and trained on this 197 course since almost day one. One of the things that often frustrates me is the lack of attendance by a team versus just one person representing a jurisdiction. And I think the frustration I'm seeing is just when you're not attending as a team and you go back as just one person, it's a hard sell to get people to attend to some of the issues that need attention and integration. So I always like to promote and beg and do whatever I can that when we recruit for the course, that we give priority to teams that attend. For example, a group from Colorado Springs that work together, or a group from Denver, or whatever. I just feel so strongly about that as I've been frustrated over the years. So any comments from Danielle or you or Mike?
I have a comment and you're going to celebrate, but November 9th and 10th, we did a G197 in person here in Colorado Springs that supported at least 4 different counties. And Tim and Gabby, remind me if I have that wrong. But a lot of them attended as a team. So we had Teller County, we had El Paso County, we had Lake County, and we had one more county, Park County, I think Park County, 4 counties. They all attended, and they attended as a team. And you're exactly right, June. It helped them start doing solution-focused processes. We did the first one, and we did this, we offered out as a use it so you don't lose it concept. So we offer it twice a year and upon request. And it is for that opportunity to keep that engagement, and especially if there's turnover in emergency management or in our support partners in emergency management or other partners that are doing inclusive emergency management work. And you would have celebrated so many, even the comments on the evaluation about really having the buy-in. It was kind of neat. It reminded me of the time when I did the introduction to CMIS concept, to resource concept, to our director of the Office of Emergency Management here at the state of Colorado. And the buy-in of the aha moment when we had fire, police, OEM, Office of Emergency Management, and then emergency support function 6, which is shelter, food, water, shelter, and 8, and how that aha moment and the buy-in of CMIST came in so strong. It was such a wonderful aha moment in there. But I agree with you. Having it as a team makes a stronger movement on the buy-in and the changes to that whole community inclusion process there. So that's what I could share as far as Colorado is done. And we have all hazards regions here, and that all hazard region asked for 2 of these trainings. It was because they wanted to reach as many as their counties and bring their partners in. And the first one we did with that same all hazard region was in Salida, Colorado, and it was in April. And people were walking away from that, talking to their commissioners, talking to their decision makers, and making changes to CMIST resources availability in their area. And so just thought I'd share that one with you. And then Mike or Danielle, do you want to add anything else on that?
I think Kira had her hand up first, so I'll let her go if she has a comment.
I think it was to ask a question though, right, Kira?
Yes, Mike, you can go ahead.
Yeah, and I'll come back to you for the questions.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say, you know, as I'm listening to June and her comments and the value of that, and I see in the chat, you know, that you need to have a person that's a point person that becomes a trainer. Those are all valid points. One area that I'm just thinking outside my what I've done in Region 8 with EMI, the Emergency Management Institute, they have what's called an IEMC, Integrated Emergency Management Compact, and they work with the regions, FEMA Regional Exercise Training Officer, to establish their local level, to establish a week-long training where they come up and talk about logistics and, you know, all the different things related to emergency planning. And I was able about 5 years ago to add disability inclusion, equity, diversity onto the agenda, and that's not widely repeated across the country. So it's certainly an opportunity. But what I bring this up for is that perhaps there's an opportunity to marry up, if we're building, to Ken's point, a training portfolio. Maybe that's something that we look forward to as a menu of options for state and local jurisdictions. You know, maybe working with EMI to incorporate within that week, or maybe a follow-on if you do your IEMC, but then after that you do a G197 type series for that county. I recently attended Sandy, a city in Utah, last August for a week-long training. And the stuff that I brought up in my piece, the mayor and the assistant mayor came up and said, oh my gosh, we have a lot to be thinking. You've given us too much information. We have a lot to think about. So that then helps them understand what their shortfalls are, which is tied to the hazard mitigation plans that the state collects from all their counties that they then submit to emergency management, FEMA, whatnot, for more funding. So there's ways to, I think, raise that awareness, June and Ken, all of you that brought that up. There may be other ways to work with hazard mitigation plans, which is tied to funding, which might be how we bolster different training opportunities within the current menu of options that are currently available, whether it's a G197, whether it's EMI's IEMC, DHS has an MGT 403, I think it is. It's a basic introductory course. So there's lots of things that I think we could probably consider developing. What would be interesting though, is those that are on this call, the different states that are represented, how many of you currently have something like that? And do you see that as a gap? That data might then push for, hey, we got 7 states that are interested in this. That might be a worthwhile conversation to have with EMI and the different regional exercise and training officers to kind of come up with a strategy on how we're going to meet those gaps that are identified. I don't know if that resonates. I'm happy to elaborate if I need to, but that's my 2 cents.
I like that, Mike. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you, Michael. All right. Real quick before I go to you, Kira, Danielle, would you add anything else?
This is Danielle, and I do know that in conversations with the course that's being developed in Region 10, there is discussion about modules, right? So not everybody may have the time or, you know, maybe to the wrong crowd, the need to sit through a 3-day course, but maybe they're very interested in public information and how do we make that accessible? So why isn't that, we could make that a module, and then when we do that module, treat it like a community engagement, like who in that community needs to know this information? Are they all there at that table? And let's have some in-depth discussions about that particular module. So that's been discussed or kind of tossed around as a way to deliver that course. And I was looking in the chat, talking about trainers and that type of thing. And I do know if it's don't quote me on this, but I know at the federal level to teach a course through Emergency Management Institute or for that qualification, there has to be qualified trainers. So there has to be designated qualified trainers that lead that course, but they can also bring in subject matter experts and that type of thing. So there's some of that to balance as well as, you know, do you have enough trainers and experts to kind of bring into that course as well? So just comments.
And Danielle, thank you for bringing that up. I was going to try to get to that chat too with our trainers. The way that we do the G197 here is very similar of how they do it in California. We do bring in the subject matter experts for each of those sections to train out that information as well. And then as they do the training, and they're very involved, they also become trainers as well with us. We don't do it as only one trainer. There is 7 of us trainers, 7 to 9 of us trainers for the G197 here in Colorado. So just thought I'd share that. I'm happy both comments that Mike, you and Danielle brought up to extend that. And now, Kira, I'm going to go to you for your question. I thank you for your patience with me.
This is Kira, no problem. I also have my daughter here, so she may make some baby noises. Like right now. I'll be right back. Hold on.
Okay. That happens. I have a new granddaughter also, and I think it's about the same age as Kira's daughter there. So with that, I did notice that Director, before I go over there, I'm going to go, June, go ahead, and then we'll go to Director Gilliams and see if he has any remarks.
Yeah, I just wanted to underline what Danielle said. I think modularization of this training is a way of modernizing it, because you know, we're still under the old model that people can devote a day and a half or 2 days to this training. And I think that leaves out a lot of people. So modular training where you can focus on, one issue and you do it virtually or hybrid, I think is more inclusive of people who really need to be part of the discussion. So I just wanted to underline and emphasize what you said. I don't think we do that enough. And having been around for a long time trying to move EMI in that direction, it's a difficult task, but hopefully you all in the States have much more flexibility and can do things more agilely than depending on EMI all the time to move this along. So good. I agree, Danielle. Excellent point.
This is Sadie. I do as well. In fact, that I love that concept. That's how we even broke down our CMIST response teams here in Colorado. So they could come to what they want to, not the whole thing, and what benefits their local area there. And so I agree with you, June, and Danielle and Mike on those ideas there. Hey, Kira, it looks like you're back. Go for it.
Hi there, this is Kira. Sorry about that. So, this is a really excellent, well-needed conversation. I want to also just add a caveat based on our experience here in Illinois. And this is just coming from a place of learning as well. So what I'm wondering here, so I'll explain. Here in Illinois, we don't have an Office of Access and Functional Needs. We have an advisory committee that consists of community members that have different experiences of disability, as well as state representatives of different agencies that provide disability services, including Illinois Emergency Management Agency. And so what I'm wondering here is, with all these great trainings and resources, how are we getting this information to state emergency management agencies that don't have offices? Because so while we have our advisory committee, this advisory committee was developed based on grassroots efforts where my coalition that I helped lead drafted a bill, and that got passed and created this advisory committee. And our main role is to review and revise both the state emergency operations plan as well as provide recommendations for local emergency management plans. And that's what we're tasked with, that as mandated by our bill. So when it comes to these trainings, that is something that IEMA needs, the staff need. They had a conference recently and several months ago, and I looked at their roster of trainings and there was not a single topic related to access and functional needs. And so I responded and said to them, where are they? And so, so they said, well, come next year, that's something that we'll look into. But the reality is, and I know this based on conversations I've been having since I'm I'm the vice chairperson of this advisory committee. I know that the staff need to be trained. And that is not something our advisory committee can necessarily do. We have very knowledgeable people on it that could assist with this, but not necessarily take on this important role. And then I think of the states that don't even actually have an advisory committee or an office. So how are these state emergency management agencies being trained in this too, regardless of whether they have an advisory committee or not?
So this is Sadie. Mike, are you able to answer that, or Danielle? And and go from there on how the other states get this information. I know that's how this group was formed. This meeting was formed on some of that need, but Mike or Danielle, how would you answer that? I don't know how that happens in other states.
Yeah, this is Mike. I mean, two things. One, I think the L197 that the Office of Disability Integration and Coordination offers is available to states that might not have the capacity. Kira, I'm reading captioning and I'm trying to make sure I answer your statement relevant to you, but messaging obviously is a key thing. If you don't know what you don't know, you're not going to get what you need. So I agree with you that we could probably do a little bit better job. At least I'm speaking for me in Region 8 and the 6 states that I engage with, but there's also opportunities amongst the other 9 artists to bolster our outreach efforts, information, maybe partner with headquarters and do a national blast out through the different community based organizations, we through our state partners and so forth. So yeah, I agree with you. There is an opportunity for messaging, outreach messaging to get people to be aware of this training, but also that the L197 is available to states, and we would love to. It doesn't have to be a G197, which is a valid option, but the L197 is also available as well.
This is Sadie, and we actually have the director on, and I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but Director Gilliams, do you want to maybe comment about those states that and reflect more about what Mike is talking about there?
Yeah, I'm always expected to be put on the spot, so it doesn't surprise me anymore. Thank you, Sadie. No, this was a big priority coming in the door because the GAO made it clear that our training standards, or at least how we're engaging the right audiences, wasn't very coherent. And Mike is right; it was a marketing problem. When I looked at the actual content, we have things that are not perfect, but they're serviceable until we get something better. I don't know why we made the decision to pull training instead of leaving the training there and making it better. Maybe there was a reason for that, but we have put a lot of emphasis right now on making sure that the audiences that we want to get trained are clearly identified, and that we're assigning metrics to what success means with those audiences. The example is the training that I took as a new join. There's a whole, I don't know what the designation is, but it's ODIC training, and it was so complete. I thought, why don't we just have this, So we pulled numbers, and we had a lot of people take the training, a whole lot of people in the states, and we broke it down by groups. It just wasn't talked about. It actually may have met the GAO's requirements pursuant to their recommendation. The problem was our ground game sucked, frankly, in terms of getting the content to people that we wanted it to get to, and then developing metrics around whether it was adequate, what they find good about it, bad about it. So we're resetting with that in mind. And I'm also doing something that's very important, and it's not recreate the wheel. So where we've got good training programs like we're seeing in this region, and in the Red Cross, I talked to the Red Cross disability folks the other day about helping us understand their model for shelters and things like that, and how can we benefit from the training they offer, or maybe adapt it to our audiences. So we're doing that with an eye toward A, getting the GAO recommendations taken care of, but also B, having our steady state posture filled with opportunities to strengthen what we need to know. And if nothing happens, it's great. We'll be that much better. But if something happens, we won't be trying to make up for lost time because we took for granted this quiet time that we have. And as a Marine, I think training is the difference between winning and losing battles. It's the boring part, it's not the sexy part, but that's how you win and lose battles, by how you train. So this was a welcome invitation here when I got invited to participate in this, because Colorado has definitely, yes, Government Accountability Office. Colorado has definitely stood out as one of the states that gets it, along with maybe California and some others I may not be able to think of. But having a robust disability integration mission within the state is very important. And I talked about that at NEMA in Vermont earlier this year. These are the state emergency managers, and talked to them about the importance of helping us really develop our ground game where the states are concerned, by having access and functional needs not be a foreign term to people during a disaster. They should already be thinking about that and considering ways that resiliency is best assured through universal design and all those things that are pretty obvious to us, but not so obvious to people who don't see this in their forethought when they're thinking about disaster response. So I would take the lessons I have, I absorb here, and when I do engage those other state leaders, that will give me an opportunity to point them to a model for how this looks, and that may start with me wearing the lapel pin that the city gave me with the puzzle piece to generate conversations about how do we normalize or have a common language around disability integration, starting with what they see and do every day before a disaster. I don't want to moderate here, but should I go to Kira next, Sadie?
Yeah, it's her question. Yeah, that would be great. Go ahead, Kira.
Hi there. Thank you, Sherman, for being here, and glad you're able to answer part of my question. What I'm wondering here, and I guess this is a bit of advocacy on my part, is that, well, I'll say this. I'm wondering, first of all, what is the role of the region's equity teams in working with state emergency management agencies, ensuring that they have these types of trainings? I could just say for Region 5, which is our Midwestern and area and where Illinois is, our Access and Functional Needs Advisory Committee is now considered to be reflect best practice within our region, and has been deemed a model for our fellow states. Now, having said that, even though I think part of the issue here in the Midwest is that we don't necessarily experience nearly as many emergencies as our counterparts on the coastline. Fortunately and unfortunately, well, I guess overall fortunately, but the lack of experience is unfortunate, because when we do have a disaster where, at least in the light of pandemic, we've been ill prepared. And so, yeah, I guess there's just a real concern on my end and others in terms of, because not every state has an office, not every state has an advisory committee. And I've learned more and more that these are created based on a bottom-up effort of grassroots amongst us disability advocates versus a top-down, and so the bottom line, though, is that regardless of these advisory committees or these offices, people with disabilities live in every state. And so we need to make sure, I would like to have it be considered more, now that you're a leader in this area, which is appreciated, to really look at, and focus in on those states that don't have us to advocate on these issues. So back to the question, I'm wondering, what is the role of those region equity planning teams, and them ensuring that they're getting these types of trainings, and which can then be passed on to the public? Thank you.
Real quick before you answer that, I know we are at top of the hour, so I want to gift those who need to drop off to go ahead and drop off. And also, we will continue this conversation in our January conversation. That'll give us a little bit more time, and that will be the focus of our January meeting. Would that be okay, Director and Mike? I know you both had some answers in there. And Kira, we're writing down that question. If you don't have time to wait for that, we could get that information back to you. I'll work with Director Gilliams and Mike to get that answer to you. But we will focus the next meeting in January on that. Just a little bit of a reminder that our next meeting, our December is a training, December 9th. 19th. If you did not get a calendar invite for that, please email me and I'll get you on that calendar invite. It is not the same. I don't believe it's the same link as this one. So just wanted to give you a heads up. Now, if you want to stay on to finish that, and both Mike and Director, you have the time to be able to answer that, please do so. And don't worry, any of you who have to hop off, we will come back to it. And remember, it's being recorded as well. All right.
I'll try to give a brief answer. My philosophy is if you're thinking about disability integration after a disaster happens, it's too late. And the resiliency of the country isn't about predicting where the next one will happen. It's about making sure that disaster doesn't become such just because a weather event happened. That means there are things you have to do before it did. You know, if you ever watch the Netflix documentary Earthstorm, you'll understand what I mean. It's too late if you're thinking about that after you know that a tornado or things are bearing down. Fires can happen anywhere. But the idea is to, you know, you don't buy life insurance right before you think you're going to die, right? This is life insurance for our people who ought to be able to move through society knowing that if and when something does happen, it's totally unpredictable, we've done a responsible thing. It's no different than our response to terrorism. There probably won't be another 9/11 in my lifetime, but we don't operate as if it can't happen again. What we do is we carry out our duty to protect the public as part of Homeland Security, period, and mitigate the damage that will follow a disaster. And that means by having as many places in society that are wheelchair accessible, that are communications accessible before, so that we got a lot of choices in where to place people. And our mindset is a lot different. And you're right, a lot of states don't see use for this because it's not been top of mind. And that's where the relationship building for my office with the help of you all comes in. And if states don't have that, we'll have to find other ways through their organizations, through their artists, to get people, when things are quiet, to look at equity through a different lens. And what are the upsides? What's the business case for equity? It's not just about putting ramps in your emergency shelters. It's a bigger issue than that. And New York is finding out the hard way about the consequences of making environments disenabling for people, so that when the worst happens, it's even worse than it needed to be because of the inherent disregard for accessibility. So we would use those case studies as cautionary tales for what can happen in a place like, you know, Illinois, which had a disaster declaration not too long ago with the floods. If they're not serious about that, and we can talk about different ways and how that might look differently per state. And I think Mike had his hand up, but Carolyn also. I don't want to take up too much more time, but I'll be happy to answer a couple more questions if I have to.
Yeah, just real quick, if I could piggyback, this is Mike. Kira, so as you asked the question about what is the regional equity, what does that mean for you? For me in Region 8, I can't speak for my colleague Rodney, but in Region 8, my equity working group that's comprised of members from each of the different divisions and a few program areas, we come together and talk about what does equity mean, right? Being a rural state outside of Utah and Colorado, Montana, Wyoming, North and South Dakota, very rural, they get a lot of disasters all the time. Doesn't mean they're always going to get a FEMA declaration, which turns on the bigger effort, if you will, the bigger flow of resources and finances. There are a lot of localized disasters that happen. That might be a flooding event to a small town. It might be a power outage, you know, with poles that go down, whatever. Generally speaking, the threshold is pretty low for some of the more rural areas, so they might get a public assistance declaration to repair those items. Those are those two things I'm doing at once. Once I'm building an awareness of what the equity gaps may look like in our region, and where are some of doing an analysis, if you will, if this happened, and using past history, whether it's a power outage for an extended period of time in the North and South Dakota during the winter. What does that mean for people who are power dependent? What does that mean for people that live geographically far, you know, from each other with gas prices and economics? And, you know, there's a lot of secondary and tertiary impact. So we're looking at that. Program areas work with our states. The issue is that as a Fed, once it gets to the state, it's hard for me to push it down to the local jurisdiction because it's outside of my jurisdiction, if you will, which is why we try to work really hard to build that state designated counterpart who then we can work together. And it could be an ESF8 in some of my states. And then I use that healthcare coalition to kind of do that outreach. So the main thing is, you're right. I think if, you know, we have a lot of we don't get a lot of disasters like hurricanes. Those are big, huge, destructive items, but we still get a lot of disasters in our regions, more rural states that are destructive to them, even though it's just not the population size that's impacted. So our job is to work both internally, strengthen our internal as we work with our states, I'm saying FEMA internally, and then work with our externals to kind of identify where those potential gaps are, and then strategize on how we can fill those gaps. And whether they're through MOUs, whether it's through finances, whether it's through training, grants, and so on and so forth. So that's in a nutshell what that means for you. But again, if you're doing an assessment and you say we have this gap, work with Rodney, who is in Region 5 artists, and come up with strategies within FEMA program areas, and whether we can do it regionally at headquarters, nationally, whatever the case may be. If we don't know what we don't know, we're not going to be planning for it. This is why I love this call. I think this call, we get great stuff like what you brought up, Kira, that is so critical because somebody else might not be thinking about it, but they're like, oh yeah, that impacts me too. So thank you for sharing that. And I hope that some of the stuff that Director Gillums and I said was impactful to you.
This is Kira. Yes, I appreciate it. I'm glad we're going to talk about it next meeting too. Thank you.
Yeah, Carolyn, did you have a quick question or comment?
Not a quick question, just a quick comment. Again, piggybacking right off of Sherman and Mike, the reality, like Sherman mentioned, once the emergency is on you, it's too late to prepare. And I think that is what we're facing, not just from state to state, as a national issue. These crises are putting forums like we're in today as a priority. And our focus has turned from disaster after declared disaster to helping our community understand that regardless of your life circumstances, whether you live with a disability, whether you have access and functional needs or not, preparation is the key to having what you require when an emergency happens. And that preparation goes from the physical to the financial to the emotional to the spiritual. So we have just held no bars back in our region now, expanding the awareness of the community to begin to take ownership of preparation.
Thank you. Oh my goodness. This has been such a wonderful conversation. Director Gillums, I would ask if we could reserve you for our January meeting to really kick us off, and we could all start with the conversation of how equity teams, how we're including equity, diversity, and inclusion in our regions and our states, and what that looks like to finish up the conversation for January. With that, any final comments, questions, concerns? Now, I will tell you, if you have any questions, I will put them on for January in respect to and valuing your time and commitment to this meeting. Right, with that, I want to thank you so much, especially Director Gillums, and putting you on the spot there. We had great conversations that started with needs and stuff. We went a little bit different than about every 2 or 3 months. We just discuss what are the needs in our states, and so that was something that came up. And you kind of missed a little bit of that piece, but we will have the recording if you want to go back and see what you missed. We'll begin that out probably later this week or early next week. So. All right. Thank you, Mike and Danielle, also for being put on the spot, and June with all your great questions, and Amy as well on those resources, and everybody else who shared resources today as well. So with that, everybody have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll see you either at the training on the 19th or in January.
Great.
Thanks, Sadie. Great meeting.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
good day, everybody.
Bye-bye.